Welcome to the Wild and Free series, a collection of down-to-earth conversations with leaders in authenticity, self-awareness, and service to the world. I'm Katie Hess, founder of LOTUSWEI. May these conversations awaken your inner explorer and open the doorway to more freedom, bravery, and wildness. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to do this live series with Anjie Cho. She's really involved in Dharma arts and meditation. She's also an architect. She's the author of Mindful Homes and Holistic Spaces. She's a dear friend and a longtime VIP of the Flower Revolution program. I'm super excited to be doing this live with you. I know it's going to be like a conversation. We'll talk for like 30 minutes or so. We're going to ask each other some questions. You'll learn about Anjie. You'll learn about the work we're doing with flowers and how we overlap. We do a podcast like for the last 6 or 7 years together on flowers recommended for the new Chinese or Lunar New Year. So we've already done one so far on Fire Horse Year. So I'm hoping we can get a little deeper into that and a little deeper dive into where our work overlaps. How are you doing today, Ange?
I'm a little tired, but I'm glad I came home to this. I was not very grounded because I was in LA. Hey, Taylor, I was in LA and then I just flew back in last night. So I'm a little tired, but it's good. It's good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm excited for the Fire Horse Year. I can feel it coming. I have a quick question for you. So the elixir that you were just holding, it's got a bunch of earth orchids, right? There's a difference between the orchids that grow in the earth and then the orchids that grow from the sky and the trees. And these are all earth orchids. And I just was thinking it was like really fortuitous and synchronistic that it's bringing in an element of the earth. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit about what is the importance of bringing in more earth element in this kind of like fiery dynamic force here.
Yeah, so actually that's so interesting that they're all earth orchids, so meaning they grow from the ground.
Yes.
Ah, nice. Well, I think generally everyone's feeling very ungrounded right now, and a lot of people have been asking me for more stability. So I think that's one thing, like one kind of basic thing that we all understand. But from a perspective of looking at the fire horse, for instance, in the five elements, there's five elements. There's fire, water, earth, metal, and wood. So fire, this is a yang fire year that we're transitioning into, and that's really, really big fire, like a bonfire. But what Earth does is Earth can control it a little bit because we could think about having a bonfire and we would put maybe rocks along the perimeter to control it. And that's one way to harness the energy of the fire without letting it just run rampant and consume everything in all directions without any without any reason. So staying grounded and tapping into earth element in whatever way we can remind us as a society as a whole is how can we connect with our earth? How can we utilize that stability that earth supports us? And that actually can guide the and harness this fire energy because it can control it.
Hmm. Interesting. What's the role of leaning into more authenticity this year? Like to position ourselves for the most success. If these orchids are going to just bring out more like wildness and freedom and authenticity and expression, why is that so important this year?
Well, I think that one quality of the horse, so we talked a lot about the fire part of the year, but in terms of horse, I think horses are I mean, they were wild animals and they've been domesticated to support humanity and to give us much more strength. That's also a way of controlling the wildness within us. And so, how can we kind of be somewhere in between, not be like a horse that's domesticated and moving straight forward with blinders on without experiencing the world, but how can we tap into this wildness that we connect to horses, like the idea of like a wild herd and connecting with community, benefiting from community. And, horses actually don't care that. I feel like horses kind of, they don't care that much. They're not, and they're said to be a little bit less, less drama, right? So, like the personality of a horse, they're not going to say, "Oh, I wonder what Katie's thinking, and I wonder if Katie meant this when she said that," and da da da. It's like they're like, "No, let's just go." Right? So it's tapping into that wildness of like, what is it we need? Where can we run and where can we have joy? And I think also, I mean, I'd like to hear more from you about these earth orchids because I think generally people only have the most superficial idea of orchids, right? Like they think of a phalaenopsis like from Home Depot or something, right? And they may not, and unfortunately, I find that a lot of people don't even know like there's a plant involved, that they only think that it's the bloom. And that, like in Feng Shui, we use orchids a lot because actually to invite in a partner because
Oh,
they represent, yeah, so they represent an upright partnership, noble partner to bring into your life. And I like the idea that many people get these orchid plants and think it's only about the bloom, and when the bloom goes away, they just toss it in the trash. And that's very aligned with how people work with relationships too, right?
no.
Like
Oh,
after the
no.
honeymoon period, they're like, well, I don't know how to work with this. I don't know how to cultivate this. This is too much work. And then and then investing time, energy, and care into something that may not bloom again, may never bloom again, but it might. You don't know. So so yeah, I'm curious to hear about like how these orchids, I was imagine they're kind of small.
These ones are tiny. Yeah, they're like the size, some of them are like the size of your thumbnail. But
Um,
I find that sometimes in the wild, the tiniest orchids are the most powerful. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're at a time period right now, and I don't know if it's the fire horse year or just in general, as I was walking to work thinking, in 2020, we had this huge purge and purification of fear and separation and disconnection. And I think so many of us we've come to a point of stability. We've, healed in our cultures around the world. We've gotten over this kind of major purification sits in our systems. And now it's like, okay, now we're strong again, we're stable, and we're looking to like experience more of ourselves. Like, how can we break the rules a little bit more? How can we feel a little more connected to the people around us? How can we express ourselves more freely? Like, even in, simple things like this beautiful teacup that you made me, like using your hands to express, or dancing or singing or speaking your mind or telling the truth or taking a risk or having a hard conversation. I feel like those are all things that we want more of, as well as the ability to make things a little easier. Like, could
mhm,
we allow ourselves to receive more? Could we experience more effortlessness, more ease, more joy, more freedom of movement? Sometimes we are so hard on ourselves and we kind of like crunch ourselves down into this little box. And to be able to open up our hearts a little more, have a little more adventure and exhilaration and discovery. I mean, I can only speak from my personal experience that, having my own business for 20 some years, there's just like a lot of hard work. And you go through these phases of like doing what you think is going to make you successful, or doing what other people are doing, or doing what you think you're supposed to be doing. And then at a certain point, like you hit so much burnout, it's like, wait a minute, how do I make this work for me? Like, how do I not struggle so much? How do I not work so hard and burn out so much? How
mhm.
do I like allow joy and freedom and things that like light me up? So I really want to share the magic of these orchids with more people, because I think a lot of people will resonate with that. What do you think?
Well, I hear a lot of the elements that we're talking about, in even in the words that you say you want to be lit up. That's like that fire element. But then how do you stay grounded and how do you be supported? And that's something I think that we forget, is that the earth is there underneath us all the time to support us. And you don't have to do very much, but allow yourself to be held and to be supported. And so when we're feeling overwhelmed, because I feel like a lot of people feel very overwhelmed right now as well. And we forget that we can rely on the earth and that we're all like you, even you're in Phoenix, I'm in New York now. We're both sitting on the same earth and we're connected on this earth. And even when I think about these little orchids, like they could, you said some of them are as small as your thumbnail, your fingernail, like they can really be overlooked. And similarly, I think that we often step on things, we forget to look down, we forget to connect to the earth. And so things like, for instance, Lunar New Year. Lunar New Year is looking at the cycles of the moon and how we live in harmony with our environment. The fire horse year is also an invitation, like all the zodiac cycles, is an invitation to see that our life here on this earth that we all inherited and we live together on, which is becoming much more and more interconnected, that we're all here together and there's cycles, right? There's a time for more fiery energy. There's time for quieter energy and it's a way of observing, and we're in the northern hemisphere. We're also coming out of winter. I know LA, I was just in LA, so LA and Arizona is not as cold as, New York. We've had this crazy snow here and it's been really cold. But we start to look at like what is around us, what's the environment around us, what is the flora underneath us, and how do we like what are the little beings, the little orchids underneath our feet? What are the people that we share this earth with, that we walk alongside, and how do we connect with our neighbors? So these are all these invitations I think that we can look at when we want to be grounded, connecting to the earth. So not having to carry everything on our own, and then also that inspiration and that joy and that like being lit up that we can begin to harness, because that's becoming more and more available to us this year with the fire horse.
Thank goodness. What about
Yeah.
expression? What about expression? Like speaking, being seen, being heard.
That's a good question.
The
I don't
horse
know if
kind of wants to be seen, right? Like,
I think the horse wants to be seen, but it doesn't, I think, I have a feeling that horses are less expressive by, well, they do less expressive. They express themselves in different ways than, I mean, like, so for instance, we're coming into snake year. So a snake would express itself? I don't know. A snake is like silent, more silent, right?
mhm.
And a horse is a bit louder. Like for instance, a rooster would be one of the loudest ones. Like we would say, like in a rooster year, definitely like roosters are very good communicators, like too much. They're supposed to be very gregarious, talk a lot. That's the energy. So I think horse is like a different kind of energy where they do say, I think they're more direct, like directly saying what they want.
Mhm.
And they're considered less like the opposite of that snake energy, where the snake is really like has like other like things going on.
Mhm.
Horses are really straightforward. So how can we start to be more straightforward with if we want to be seen? Or if we don't want to be seen, that's okay too. But also not having to play things the way that we think it, like I think a lot of people think, oh, I need to express myself in this way, and that's what society has been doing for some time. And I think, and also you and I, like we have like a visible presence, right? And we talk a lot for our work. Um, but I think we're both kind of shy people and quiet, introverted people. So just finding a way to, like, I feel like horses can talk without having to talk. Like they can express themselves with more presence than necessarily communicating through words. So how do you present yourself through other means, like checking in with your other senses or your energetic presence, rather than doing it the way that it's
Mhm.
been done, like being an influencer or talking or just taking up all the space in the room.
I love that. Yeah, it's like a sense of like majestic embodiment.
So so the orchids are like a recurring theme, and you talked about like the sky orchids and the earth orchids, and the tree orchids, like so that's like wood and maybe like metal would be heaven or something. So what makes so you selected only earth orchids for this, and how did that come about, and how did you kind of start to understand that emotional quality that was connected to these earth orchids?
Yeah, I mean, 20 some years ago when I was studying with my flower essence teacher, he would always say, don't give orchid essences to people who are just starting to take flower essences. It's dangerous. They could go crazy.
Oh.
But I feel like we've changed so much as a human species.
Mhm.
And I'm more and more and more interested in orchids in the last few years, simply because I feel like there's such an advanced teaching. And as humanity becomes more and more prepared for this advanced teaching, it's like we're ready. Like we want the deeper teachings. We want to purge those weird fears and restrictions, and we want to feel more free. And so orchids are just a theme that are popping up much more because I feel like they're just going deeper in our psyche and they're liberating more freedom. And we want that right now. We're able to handle that. And we have enough coherence and stability and capacity to allow that to happen.
Well, I just think it's interesting that it's about that your teacher said that people weren't ready for it because that's, I mean, and we also, you and I are also students of Buddhism too, and there's a lot of things like, and also in Feng Shui and in tea ceremony and all these other, in Ikebana, all these other Asian teachings. There's definitely a little bit of gatekeeping, but for good reason, right? To prepare the mind to before you move forward, and so it's not for beginners, but we're really being challenged with that now with the way society is now, so those things need to that needs to adapt with modern society.
How do you break the rules?
Well, I've had to break a lot of rules actually because with everything I teach, so everything I teach, feng shui, ikebana, they're all lineage based, and even meditation, right? So there's so many, um, and I think for very good reasons, so many levels of gatekeeping because I mean, like, there's not much like you can't understand it unless you've gone through the first gates, right? But then people are so impatient, and so you have to find a way in between. Like even the way, so I taught Ikebana at the San Center, right? And that wouldn't be a traditional lesson. So I break the rules, but it's okay. My teacher is okay with that because he understands things need to adapt. And so you have to see like what do people want? Where it's about noticing like where are you? What is needed? How can you communicate, and what's the intention of what you want to communicate? Like, do you really want to just do you want to help people, or what's the intention, and what's the best way to be more helpful in the world? And so it needs to be some kind of balance in between, and I'm always, and it's fun actually to always test it. Yeah, so that's interesting. Like, how did you make so you just made the decision like I'm going to break the rules that my teacher kind of set, and
Mm,
you think it's okay?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been 20
Mhm.
some years, and I think things have changed so drastically since then. And
Yeah.
I know people are ready for it, and if they're not, in my experience, they won't be drawn to it. If someone is just starting their journey with flower essences and they're not really resonating with the orchids, they will
Mhm.
try something else.
That's
Sure.
true. Like, also, for instance, my teachers really gatekeep, some of them would gatekeep me teaching, which I respected. And when now students come to me, my students come to me and ask me if they can teach, I say, you have my blessing because I also know that it's not up to me. If they're meant to be a good teacher, it's going to take, they're going to find their students. You can't be a teacher without students. So I trust that they'll follow their path, and what I can do is just support them. And so that's similar, I think, with the flower essences that you said that like they may not be attracted to them or something could happen. But flower essences aren't, well, are they that, can they be that dangerous? You said like people could go crazy.
I mean, that's what he said. I think there is an element sometimes of healing crisis, but I believe that we are only given as much as we can handle in the moment. You know, you might cry on the couch for a couple hours, or you might, you know, something like makes itself really
Hmm.
present in your awareness. You have a hard time with it, or you get angry, or you get irritated, or intensity of emotions arise, right?
Hmm.
But there's also this really cool thing about flower essences is they're working with the human consciousness. So in my view, you're never going to get something presented to you that you can't handle because your own consciousness will kick it out of the system if it's too intense. It's like, you know,
Yes,
like
absolutely.
acupuncture, opening up your gates of energy. You're just gonna like release it like static cling if it's not appropriate for you. So I don't really believe it can be dangerous, although I understand. And we were living very, very different. I mean, think about like 20 some years ago. Yoga wasn't
Hmm.
cool, meditation wasn't cool. We didn't know much about, you know, it was just a completely different world in the way we express ourselves. Okay, I have one more question for you, Ange. And then we're going to open it up to questions from whoever is here listening. Thank you guys for being present. Really appreciate your presence. Okay, one thing I really admire about you, Angie, is that you make beautiful things. So you make beautiful pottery. Like every year you give me the most beautiful gifts that you've made by hand and your flower arrangements and all the work that you do artistically. How do you allow yourself to like, you know, I don't know. I mean, I think some people will relate with like, I need to work really hard. I need to make things happen. I should be doing X, Y, or Z. And some of these more creative arts are like indulgent or selfish or, geez, I should be doing something more serious. So, like, how do you let that move you in a sense? And then also instruct it in a way that it comes back to your work. Like, how does making a beautiful flower arrangement or beautiful pottery, how do you know that that actually feeds back into your work and it does make sense?
That's a great question. I think especially now with our interconnected world, there's so many people that relate to that term like multifaceted, right? And I'm definitely a multifaceted person. Um, I think that one thing I know is that when your heart longs to pursue something, so for instance, studying flowers and studying feng shui, and you know, and I'm an architect too, so I start and a meditator and a Buddhist, and so when you start to allow yourself to dive deeper into things instead of just being surface level, um, I think that we can start to see a lot of synchronicities. So those connections naturally arise. So when I teach feng shui and when I teach meditation and when I teach ikebana, it's the same teaching. It's not different. Um, the maybe the material or the method is different, or sorry, like the output is different, right? So a home or a flower arrangement, but really the teaching is often the same, which goes back to being interconnected and interdependent and being aware of your senses and the seasons and the space around you. For me, that's my way, but I don't do it for everything. So like the ceramics, I signed up for class this winter and I have not been to a single class and I have another class tonight and I probably won't go because now we're old, Katie. We've known each other a long time. I can't make the 6:30 p.m. class anymore. I'm like so tired. Or something always comes up, right?
Hmm.
So I look at some things like that's just a hobby. And even tea ceremony, I'm like that. It does feed into everything else. And I think also the nice thing is like these Zen arts or these Asian arts have a lot of flow together. So I'm always needing to cut things away though. So I think I might have to cut out the ceramics, but it was really helpful at a time like during the pandemic. It was the only art class open or available. So I started taking it because I wanted to do some art and you have like so Katie has a version of like the grade school ashtray. She has so she has like my first pieces and now they're getting much better after like a few years.
You're too humble. They're all amazing. They're
So
all
let's
really.
see if anyone has any questions.
We can answer questions about the fire horse year, about flowers, flower essences, flower arranging, meditation, feng
While we're
shui.
waiting, While we're waiting for questions, can you tell me about the docuseries?
Yeah. Oh my God. It is like, speaking of wild expression, it's like the most vulnerable project we've done so far. And it's like, we're goofy, we're silly, we're ourselves, which in some ways is like harder to present than like really ourselves. We bring the camera into all these, on the trail and in the forest and all our silly adventures. But it's really exciting to share with people what we actually do and also just like the joy of getting back out into nature. That's the part I love
Mhm.
the most. This time
It's
it's in
mostly
Wyoming.
in Wyoming. Okay.
It's Grand Tetons and Yellowstone. It's a three-part series, so there'll be a half an hour coming out, like roughly 20 to 30 minutes each week. And then in the end of April, beginning of May, we'll release another series of when we were in Nepal and the orchids we collected in Nepal.
Ooh, I loved all the things that you posted on Instagram when you guys were in Nepal.
It's such a special place. It's so heart-opening. So I'm looking forward to bringing those orchids through to people too, because it's just such a like heart-opening place and experience, and the flowers are a perfect illustration of that. Okay, there was one question on here. Do you sell your pottery, Ange?
I have some on my website, holisticspaces.com, but not really. I mostly I give them away to people. Um,
Sweet.
and then there's a question for you. Can you clarify what you were sharing about orchids?
Yeah, so before I was saying that, my flower essence teacher had recommended if you were just beginning with flower essences, not just start with orchids. But I believe that that has changed over time. So, like you said, when you get into some sort of work or craft or art or science of something, it changes over time. And what I've seen from the last 20 years is that people have evolved so much that we're now at a point of coherence and presence and stability where we can handle these stronger flower essences, and we're actually wanting the challenge. Humanity wants the challenge. And right now, these particular orchids that are coming out of Grand Tetons and Yellowstone are really like bringing out more wildness, more discovery, more like embodied experience and ability to trust ourselves and feel comfortable in our bodies and our situations. And it just is like perfect timing because as Angie talks about how the earth element can be really supportive for a fiery, crazy year.
So Sophia asked, do you also think that the time is coming back to less screen, more nature?
That's a great question. I believe so. Yeah. I do. I do believe so. Because we know what it feels like to be distracted and get sucked down a scroll hole, right? Like just we know that feeling. And then also, like this year so simple. I gave up my car this year, which is crazy. Fortunately I
Really?
live
Oh, I
yeah.
read that. Yeah.
Fortunately I live close to
Mhm.
the office so I can walk, and you're used to it from New York, but in a place like Phoenix, most people have to have a car to get around. But I tell you, Angie, my walk to work every morning, my simple walk home is so revitalizing. Like you said, just putting my feet, and I'm wearing shoes, just putting my feet on the grass, walking through the trees. I'm in an urban area, I'm in the city. Like, same with New York. I go to New York City and I'm like, oh my God, there's so many flowers and beautiful trees here and so much nature. People think I'm crazy because it's New York City, but so much beautiful nature. And I feel that. It is so revitalizing. So I think that, yeah, we're becoming more aware of how it feels to be in those different states and more able to be able to look for things that support us. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree that, especially because I teach a lot of classes online, um, there is definitely a feeling that people want to meet in person. Like I do a lot of hybrid classes too, like well, not a lot. I do a few hybrid classes, and I think there is a longing to meet in person. People want to see each other. And I think just like a lot of people are accumulating a lot of stuff, like physical objects in their home, they're also accumulating a lot of this digital clutter. Like everyone has at least I have at least I don't know how many Zoom classes I have that I need to watch, right? So people don't really want to be online as much, and people will pay and find it a luxury to have like an in-person experience and in nature. So I have definitely seen a huge trend to really keep not forgetting the helpfulness of technology, and the way that it keeps us interconnected. But obviously, like we're all overwhelmed with the news cycle, being having everything having that our attention drawn away so much that will many more people want to spend time in nature. Absolutely. How do
How
you
do
see the experiences in Bhutan and Nepal with the essences for the year of the fire horse?
Oh, okay. So I can make it really concise in a nutshell. Nepal is like the wildest, most heart-opening place I've ever been to. When you spend time with Nepali people, it's like instantly your best friends. There's no guarding, there's no barriers, there's no protective shell. And even if you're here in the States and you don't really feel like you have a lot of protective, like you feel pretty vulnerable and expressive, just being in Nepal, it's like, oh my gosh, there's another shell, there's another layer, there's another protection. Like I didn't even see that before, until this person like looked at me in the eyes that way, or until they like gave me this affection in that way. It broke down those barriers. So uh, I would say, at least from the orchids coming from Nepal, and you can tell me, and how that relates to Firehorse. And then Bhutan is like opening up the spiritual gates. It's like for me, it's much more of like a heart mind experience, like of what's possible and miracles and how we spiritually evolve in the world. So what would you say, Angie, then in terms of like the how can the fire horse, like why is this good timing,
Mhm.
that we're anchoring in more flower essences for opening our hearts, breaking down protective barriers, believing in more miracles and our ability to evolve spiritually.
Well, I think one thing is that we really feel separated right now, right? And so we can even see it as people saying, when is the transition between snake and horse? Like people want to know, like, yes and no, right and wrong. When is this cutoff? What is black, like the 50, like they want to know and solidify everything. And one of the stories they say about the horse and the story of the horse and the snake is that the snake curled up around the horse's either in the shoe or around its ankle and its leg, and the horse carried the snake through the entire amazing race, which determined the order of the zodiac animal. So there's a teaching there that the snake and the horse are intertwined, and we could look at like the symbology, one like basic symbol of the snake, right? Shedding its skin. So that's the idea of maybe like noticing the layers that we've had. And then the idea that the horse carried the snake the whole time but had no idea. And that can even speak to you saying like, I didn't even know I had this other layer, this other shell, and and that never ends, right? Like that we're as long as we're alive, like when we continually shed even our skin cells, it's an indication that we are alive, we are humans. That stops happening when we're dead, right? So we're continually um, shedding our layers. So there's that connection with the snake and then the horse. The horse gives us the legs and gives us the strength because a horse gave lent its strength to the snake to pull through. So and then again, it circles back to this is not separate. So it's like, okay, the snake year's over, done. Horse year starts, and really, that's not how nature works. It's not how this world works. It's not how any kind of relationship works. So how can we begin to invite like this ability to work with the imbalances, to work with movement, to notice when we want to cling and solidify things in our life, and instead like how can we learn that those two things aren't at least at this time in our world are not separate, so we can utilize the strength that's offered to us. And we may not know all of the things that we're shedding, and this is going to carry on for some time.
So the shedding is going to carry on through the fire horse year.
Maybe it's possible.
Hmm. Well, I want to thank you, Ange, for taking the time to be here, and thank you everyone for being here. Where can people find out more about you?
They should listen to our podcast that we did together on the fire horse. So we did a podcast together for the Holistic Spaces podcast, and we have a flower ally for every zodiac animal, so you guys can listen to that. I'm gonna repost them all on Instagram, so you can follow me on Instagram at Anjie Cho.
So nice to be with you. Thank you guys for joining us. I just like I'm so appreciative of our friendship, Angie. As I get older and as more time passes, I really deeply appreciate the friendships I've had and the business relationships that have lasted decades. So so nice to be here with you.
Thank you. And I hope everyone tunes in for all the other calls coming up, right? Who else are you talking to?
So fun. Carrie Ann Moss, Alina Brower, Nick Polizzi, Ksenia Avdilova, really, really amazing people. And everybody is in this like caliber of authenticity and expression and down to earth and being themselves and like changing the world by changing themselves. So such a
And
fun
don't
group.
forget to use your wild earth, even though it's going to be mirrored in the
Have you
picture.
started taking it? Have you noticed
Yeah,
anything?
I did as I'm like, I got in last night at midnight and I was like, I need some of this now. Because I've been all up in the air. I was flying for 7 hours. Yes, I'm
Cool.
excited to see how it unfolds. It's been less than 24 hours, so
Keep me posted.
I will.
All
Have a great day.
right, take care. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us.